Hey everyone, this is Author Tillery here, the Mistress of Horror, and welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, how about you press that subscribe button, give this video a like, and ring that bell so you know when I'm uploading new videos. So this week's video is more about the writing side of things. Though all of it's about writing side of things. It's not so horror-esque. But still, you get the taste of horror just because I'm here, obviously. So what I want to talk to you about is I get this question a lot, and I hear writers say it a good amount, mostly new writers. I want to write a book, and then they ask, how do I start? That's the problem. So I have a little bit of advice about how you start writing a book. Now, of course, if you're new to writing, you may not know some of the terms that we use, and some of those terms are being a planner writer, a pantser writer, or a plantser writer. That being said, you could be any of these. Mostly you would know from the description I'm going to give you. A planner is a writer who goes off a plan before they write their book. So a planner will tend to use an outline, and the outline is something that you'll have to figure out how you want to do an outline. I do have my own process about how I do my outline for my book because I am a planner. So a planner does plan everything that they can before they start writing the book. So you have like an outline is like a blueprint in my opinion. A pantser, however, will be a writer that would sit down and just write for what comes to them at that time as if they're writing the book already. The planter would be a combination of these two things where they may plan some things and then wing the rest of it. Or they may mix it up more than that. So that being said, you can tell from that description which one you are. As far as starting a book, either way, this could apply to you no matter which one of those three you are. I always tell people who ask me that to write down any ideas you have. Even if you are not a planner, just write down those ideas, what kind of book you want to write. Rather, you just write what kind of genre you may want to write. Do you want to write a fantasy novel? Do you want to write horror? Do you want a mixture of those two? Do you want to write a romance story? Do you want to write a historical piece? You know where you're going. What kind of book you're possibly going to write. Is this fiction or is it nonfiction? So those type of things. You want to know those things so you know where you're going. And then move into things maybe, I don't know if you're the type of writer, and you may not know at this point either. Do you build from the characters or character, or are you more of a start with the story and then build the story, build the characters from the story? I'm more of a character writer where I write the characters and build the story around the characters. Of course, I try to tell some of the people asking this question a way to help you get started besides just writing the ideas. Any idea you have, like the sky is always going to be red in my story because of this, that type of thing. If you have an idea like that, you want to write that down. And then, of course, character. So the main character would be the prominent one. You want to write down that character's name. Maybe he doesn't have a name yet. Maybe she doesn't have a name yet. That's fine. So you know your character is whatever, and then you write down the character, and then you can build a character bio. Maybe where the character was born. Possibly the character has parents right now. Maybe the character's personality background. Are they a more aggressive person? Are they a passive person? Are they a happy person? Are they angry most of the time? Just something basic. Even if this changes, at least you have something to build from if you're going to start building with the character. Now, if you're going to build with the story, then you may want to think about what kind of story you want to write. Do you want to write a story about a person that lives on the mountains and then they get a visit from a person who lives in a city aspect, and let's say that the person that lives in the mountain save the person who's from the city, and then the story develops around that, and then that type of thing. So you want to, if you want to build from the story, figure out what the story is first, then build characters based to what happens in the beginning of the story. So you could do that. But like I said, I build my characters first. So when I wrote Cagliostro was the character that I'm building it around. I knew what he was going to be, some kind of supernatural being. Actually, the first version of Cagliostro, he was a vampire, but he isn't really just a vampire at this point. So that being said, things can change, which is fine. And I'm a planner. Wasn't always a planner. I was a planter before and turned into a full blown planner. It actually helped me to finish my book. And I hear other things too where people will say, well, I was a planner and being a planner didn't help me write my book. If anything, it stopped me from writing my book. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you weren't outlining right or whatever, but it's possible that everyone has the way that they have to write, how their process works. So possibly being a planner for them really did stifle them and stop them from writing their book. That's very possible. I had the opposite thing happening to me. It wasn't working as a planter, and a pantser was not getting my books completed. I would write lots of stories, but none of them would get done. But I'm also a short story writer, so when I wrote my short stories, those get completed because they're very short, and I have a very knack for writing short stories. I can write you a short story in 1,000 words or less and complete it, and it'd be over. Of course, I write horror a lot, which makes it a little easier in my opinion. Once you get those ideas jotted down, that helps you move into another step. So even if you're a planner, you can do that. Even if you're a pantser, you can do that. Even if you're a planter, you can do that. And that will help you leading into starting to write your book. So that's the advice I wanted to give people for they're saying that I want to write a book, but I don't know how to start. Start with an idea. Next thing, as a writer, ask yourself questions. Always ask yourself questions. If you ask yourself a question, you're going to get an answer. So, and then you can ask your characters questions. Like, how do you feel about this, Ben? Like, Ben, how do you feel about going across a lake on a little canoe? Maybe Ben doesn't like that. Maybe Ben gets nervous. Then you might figure out a few things about your characters you didn't know. It doesn't really matter if things change later. It doesn't matter if you're going to have a first draft and then you can change things on your second draft. Totally fine. But again, this is about getting started. So in order to get started, get those ideas down. Ask yourself questions about what kind of book you want to write. What kind of story do you want to put forward? And you tell the story the way you want to tell it. That being said, if you think this advice is helpful to you, let me know. If you're new to writing and you really want to start that book, you didn't know how to start it, and then write those things down. You're surprised how much that helps you get started. Alrighty, I hope this advice helped. Let me know how you started writing your book or where your idea came from. And if that's how you start, you just get a random idea, it pops in your head, or you may not decide that. That's another thing. You can really sometimes get random ideas. Again, write those down. Helps you get started. Alrighty, guys, I will see you next week and stay scared.